What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video answering a question, pretty straightforward one really, about whether or not I get burnt out playing all these different video games for various reviews and coverage, etc. This is a question people have been asking me a lot lately, the past couple of months, and as usual, when people ask me something enough, eventually I will make a video out of it to throw in the channel FAQ playlist, which is exactly what this video is. And honestly, part of that is that in order to give a comprehensive answer, it's easier to just make a video about it than write an essay in the comments every time somebody asks. That said, as usual, a couple things to know straight away. One, feel free to just listen. There's not really going to be anything super interesting going on screen. Second, while I have mentioned like bits and pieces of this here and there, I don't think I've touched on the entirety of the subject in a singular video anywhere, but some of this stuff, if you watch my channel regularly, might not be newsworthy or anything. And third, I want to start out a video like this by simply stating that I love what I do. I love being able to play all of these games non-stop. It was a lifelong dream of mine, and getting to do that every day is a dream for me, which is why I personally find it kind of annoying when content creators complain about this kind of thing. And I just wanted to make it clear here at the beginning that while, like any job, yes, there are going to be pain points involved, there is nothing I would rather be doing than this. Which then finally brings us around to the question itself. Simply put, the answer to this question is yes and no. Do I get burned out sometimes? Yes, but not from playing the video games. It's typically more about doing this, what I'm doing right now, which is making the videos. In particular, recording the audio, actually. But first, let's focus on the video games. So, I love playing video games. I have played them substantially more than most people my entire life. As soon as I figured out what they were, I have been trying to find ways to play more of them. Even when I had my salaried job previously, I would work like, 50, 60 hours a week, come home and still find time to play video games. Now, I would say that when I was younger, especially as a teenager, I had a bit of an unhealthy relationship with them, but even back then, they've never prevented me from getting anything done that needs to get done. Not least of which now that it's my literal job to do it. And I wanted to tell you that because, to be very clear, my baseline for doing this is already leagues above what other people do just as a hobby or whatever else. Even when this was a hobby for me, I was playing more games than most people, which is why I was making videos, which led to the creation of this channel, and here we are. And we'll swing back around to that point in a moment, actually, but when it comes to the video game side of this discussion specifically, I don't really get burned out playing games hardly ever. There are certainly occasions where I'm kind of just done for the day and ready to walk away and do something else for a few hours, sure. But I'm always going to be right back at it the next day, and that's not going to be an issue in any way. And oftentimes I'll use that time, in fact, to do things like editing, etc. But there are, I would say, two sort of, not exactly exceptions, but important notes in that regard. One, too much of one thing gets kind of boring. Now this varies based on the game. I think I even made a video about this in particular, about the rough amount of hours I'm willing to play something based on whether I'm not interested in it, whether I like it, or whether I love it. There are games like Baldur's Gate 3 that I can happily play for 500-ish hours at a time, obviously over several days, weeks, etc., before I hit a point where I need to play something else for a while. Then, however, there are games that I'm just not enjoying. Ideally, once I'm done with those, I'll probably never even pick them up again. And then there's games kind of in the middle, like RPGs and CRPGs that I enjoy. I'm usually happy to spend 100 hours or so with those before I start getting annoyed with them, or just ready to play something else generally. Now, some of the ways I prevent this are simply by switching up genres, especially. As much as I love CRPGs, playing a bunch of them back to back to back gets a little stale, honestly. See some different stuff, enjoy some different mechanics. I've talked a lot about how playing any game that does basically anything that feels truly unique to me is immediately going to grab my attention these days. And from the outside looking in, I would imagine that's why my output can seem a little weird in terms of what games I'm covering when, because often what I'm trying to do is break up the genres that I'm playing, which helps me stay a little more engaged and on top of things. Or if I play something that I really just didn't enjoy at all, then I try to jump back into something that I like a lot, as an example, to kind of get the taste out of my mouth. And that's kind of just the spark notes on the video game side of it. But something that bleeds into that, but is mainly more on the video editing side, is that when you do something as a job, that is a fundamentally different experience than doing it as a hobby, even if it's something you really love. There is that age-old saying that if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life, and I think that is nonsense. It is absolutely work, but I do that work specifically because I love it. But something that you see oftentimes, especially in the content creator space, is that the people who want to break into this space and do it for a living don't ever really treat it like an actual job. Now, luckily for me, I've had some real jobs before stepping into doing this. I know that there are content creators out there who this is the only thing they've ever done, and that was not the case for me at all. I have mentioned several places that I did this for 6 years before I ever started making any money at it. During that time, I obviously had to actually make some money, and that is when I had my old salaried job. And while I kind of hated that job, to be honest, what it did that was incredibly important that I would not change anything about is the fact that that job taught me how to run a business. And while that doesn't really help with the specific content creation part of it, what it helped a lot with is running the back end of this. That is to say, editing, putting things together, breaking down analytics, focusing on different things, chasing the things people actually want to see from you, etc. A lot of that stuff is so applicable to this that jumping into this full time was easier than I expected, specifically because I already knew how to do so much of the back end stuff that people don't think about when they think about content creation. But as you probably caught there at the beginning, I kind of hated that job. And while the exact nature of it has changed, the fact that it's still work I don't really enjoy has not. Which means that making the videos has always felt like a bunch of work, and it's by far the hardest part of this entire thing, actually putting that all together. And once you know that, and you take a look at my channel, some things would hopefully become clear pretty much straight away. You probably noticed that almost all of my videos are edited the same way. Very quick, easy transitions, typically gameplay. I don't like putting my face in them, despite the fact that it is not a secret. You can see me in live streams plenty. I do not write scripts. I make bullet points of my notes and try to hit those topics so it sounds a little more conversational, which is both faster for me, but also I sound better this way than reading a script, which makes me sound like a robot, honestly. But I do all of those things to make the process of making the videos as quick and as simple as possible. And much of that is in service of the fact that I would A, rather be playing video games, to be honest, and B, it's the part of this that feels the most like work by far. And it can get a little exhausting, especially when you are posting as frequently as I am, which again comes back to time and how quickly I can put all these things together, which is why the way I've edited my videos has never been particularly impressive or anything, nor has it really been any goal of mine to make it so. In fact, much of what I maximized was trying to make it sound like I was just having a conversation with you about a video game. Now, I think that works really well on YouTube in particular because YouTube is a platform that is kind of built on authentic connection, as opposed to, overproduced, super high-end, advertising type stuff, incredibly cinematic. And while there's certainly space for things like that on YouTube, I've found that the more, let's say, disingenuous marketing, etc. becomes, the more that just a guy talking about video games seems to work for people. And so I've really tried to hone in on that in particular because A, again, it's easier for me personally, and also because clearly those things do well, which is why I can do this full time. But obviously, I find the process of making all those videos to be a bit exhausting, which is why I try to keep it to the reviews, which are the big thing that I do, and then little fun videos and discussions, etc. that aren't super hard to throw together that I can just try to have a good time making. In fact, that's why I enjoy making so many list-style videos, because those videos are easy to make and they are fun to make. And for me at least, they're fun because they get me thinking and talking about video games, which is what I love, which then makes the process of making the video a little easier. And if you don't believe me, try this. Think about something you like about video games. Spell casting systems, spell systems in general, the way exploration works, the way driving handles in various video games, the way your favorite video games, your favorite games of a certain genre, etc. And then start asking yourself as you start piecing the initial games that come to mind when you think about those things, why that is. What about those things made them what you think of when you think about that subject? And for me at least, I love that. That's fun. And that process makes the video easier to make, which is why I enjoy making those. But that's kind of what I'm getting at there. But the thing about something being your job is that you need to do it whether you are having fun or not. And there are some days I really don't feel like editing videos, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Because again, I'm lucky to be doing this at all. and 2, it's a job, and doing that is how I ultimately make money, which allows me to continue to do this and play video games. So it all kind of feeds back into itself. But one of the reasons I find making the videos difficult in particular is that while this may seem a little counterintuitive at first, I do not generally enjoy being a very social person. If you were to actually meet me out and about, unless we're talking about video games, I'm probably not going to talk much. Now, I'm pretty good at adapting to various situations, so, if I needed to be chatty and sociable, I can certainly do that. But it's just not my default state. In fact, one of the big reasons I started making YouTube videos at all is that I really wanted to talk about video games, and I didn't feel comfortable bringing it up to most people in my actual life, and even the people I could talk to about it don't really play or have the same interest in video games that I do, let alone to the same extreme. And so making these videos gave me an outlet of here's this thing I'm super passionate about and now I can talk about it. But I mentioned that while that seems counterintuitive, it's somewhat normal, believe it or not. In fact, if you watch a lot of content creators, kind of regardless of what the subject is, but especially common in tech and video games, is that being able to just be in a room and talk into a microphone about a thing you're passionate about without necessarily literally being in front of large crowds of people talking about it comparatively makes that an easier thing to get into, and it opens up an avenue of communication that just wasn't available to you before that you don't necessarily need to be some great eloquent speaker in order to do. And you spend enough time doing that, you're likely to find your voice and what makes that unique and potentially something people would actually want to listen to, which is what I found to be true, and I've seen other content creators express a very similar sentiment. And so kind of for all of those reasons, as I mentioned, are there days I don't enjoy making these videos, especially recording this audio, etc.? Yeah, obviously. It's a job like any other. There are going to be things you don't like about it. But I love doing this. I understand how lucky I am to be doing this, and so I do it even on the days I don't feel like necessarily doing it. And before I start wrapping up this particular video, I want to talk a little bit about the future, if you will. Just because this is obviously kind of relevant to the subject here. Eventually, I plan on trying to do this for as long as I can do it. I like to push myself, challenge myself, things like that. But yes, eventually I do think I will probably slow down a bit. I think there will come a day where I simply focus on reviews or anything exciting that I think is going on and not necessarily worry about the day-to-day and just focus purely on the experiences that I think are the most worthwhile, more than likely when I am less concerned about this being my full-time job, etc. But for right now, I'm trying to make hay while the sun is shining. But years from now, there will likely come a point where I start easing up a little bit and going back to, if anything, treating it probably more like a hobby. But speaking of taking it easy, that is pretty much where I'm going to wrap up this particular video. So hopefully that was informative for you, trying to pack as much information in there as I could for people. Though I imagine at least a few of you will have something to say about it. So naturally, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. Letting me do this for a living really does mean the world to me. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.